Imagine standing in the middle of a storm that refuses to pass. The winds howl against you, the rain lashes at your face, and the ground beneath your feet feels like it might give way at any moment. Every direction you turn, another wave crashes into you. The blows come from the front, from behind, and from the sides, until it feels like there's no safe place left to stand. Life, at times, does not come at us gently. It comes with relentless force, breaking through the walls we've built for protection and testing every ounce of our endurance. Some of you have been there for far too long. You've faced betrayal from those you trusted most. You've endured disappointments that cut deeper than you ever imagined, and you've carried burdens so heavy that you've quietly wondered if your knees might buckle under the weight. You've cried in places no one could see. You've smiled when inside you were shattered. You've walked into rooms determined to hold yourself together, even when the fragments of your soul were slipping through your fingers. And somewhere deep in that private agony, you've whispered a question into the silence. God, how much longer can I stand like this? It's a strange thing, isn't it? We believe God is good, we say it out loud, we sing it in church, we write it in our journals, but then we live through seasons that seem to contradict that very truth. We see others rising while we're sinking. We hear promises of blessing while we feel the sting of loss. And yet, if you are listening closely in the darkness, there is a still, steady voice whispering to you right now. I have not forgotten you. Because here is the reality. Storms do not last forever, no matter how convincing their fury may be. The God who commands the wind and the waves is the same God who has been holding you upright when everything else tried to knock you down. And there will come a moment, not tomorrow by your clock, not next week by your schedule, but in the perfect timing of the one who sees all things, when his hand will reach into the chaos, grip you firmly, and lift you higher than you thought possible. You see, life may have hit you from every side, but God's hand is greater than the force of every blow you've endured. The betrayals that wounded you were not powerful enough to cancel his plan. The losses that broke your heart were not severe enough to stop his purpose. And the people who pushed you down have no authority to decide how high you will rise. This is the mystery of divine grace. It does not just restore you to where you were before. It sets you in a place you never dreamed you could stand. The enemy wants you to believe that because you've been knocked down so many times, you'll never get up again. But what he fails to understand is that your strength was never in your own hands. It was in the hand of God. And when God decides to lift you, no force on earth, in hell, or in the hearts of your enemies can keep you low. Think of Joseph in the prison cell, David hiding in caves, Daniel in the lion's den. Each was struck from multiple sides, betrayed, attacked, abandoned. And yet, in a moment only God could orchestrate, the prison door swung open, the throne room was unlocked, the mouths of lions were shut. That same hand that moved for them is about to move for you, and when it does, the same people who once questioned if you'd survive will be forced to watch as God himself places you where they said you could never go. So, if you are weary today, hold on. If you are surrounded by trouble, steady your heart. If you are crying in secret, let the tears fall but refuse to give up, because there is a lifting coming, a divine elevation that will not come from connections, from money, or from human favor, but from the hand of Almighty God himself. When his hand moves, the atmosphere shifts, chains break, and every attack that was meant to bury you becomes the very platform that will display his glory in your life. And now, let us walk through the truths that anchor this promise. Truths that will keep you steady until the very moment his hand lifts you into the place he has prepared. First, Understand that the delay is not denial, it is preparation for the weight of the blessing you are about to carry. Second, remember that the hits you've endured were not random. They were targeted because of the calling on your life. Third, realize that God's lifting often comes in a way you could never predict, through doors you didn't even know existed. Fourth, trust that the pain you've survived has shaped you for the platform you are about to stand on. Fifth, refuse to measure your future by your present condition. God is not finished with you yet. Sixth, hold on to the truth that when God lifts you, He also silences every voice that tried to destroy you. And seventh, know that the place He sets you will not just restore what was lost, it will multiply it beyond what you could have asked or imagined. Because when God's hand moves, it changes everything. And my friend, it's about to move for you. The delay is not denial, it is preparation for the weight of the blessing you are about to carry. You may think you are ready now because you've endured so much pain, and your heart aches for the moment when all of this will finally make sense. But God knows what you will need to stand in the place He is preparing for you. He knows the strength you will need to handle the visibility, the humility you will need to sustain the elevation, and the discernment you will need to navigate the opportunities that will come. If He lifted you today without that preparation, the very blessing meant to elevate you could crush you. That's why His delay is not an absence of care. It's the greatest proof of His love for you. A blessing that arrives too early can become a burden. God is not just preparing the blessing for you, He is preparing you for the blessing. Think about a seed in the ground. Once planted, it does not immediately push through the soil to see the sunlight. It spends time in the hidden darkness, developing roots strong enough to sustain its growth above the surface. If that seed came up too soon, a single gust of wind or a change in weather could destroy it. In the same way, God has kept you in a hidden season, not to withhold light from you, but to make sure that when the light comes, you have the depth to endure. The hidden seasons where your faith grows legs. It's where you learn to pray not for rescue, but for endurance. It's where you learn to stand, not because circumstances are comfortable, but because you are anchored in His promises. And while it feels like time is passing and nothing is happening, heaven has been busy arranging details you cannot yet see. People are being positioned, doors are being prepared, your name is being placed on opportunities that you didn't even know existed. And all the while, God is building in you the character, the patience, and the resilience to not only step into the blessing, but to carry it with integrity. Do not let the delay make you think God has forgotten. The delay is the evidence that the blessing is too great to be given without careful preparation. You have been entrusted with a future so significant that it requires this much shaping. Every lonely night, every unanswered question, every setback, it has all been part of a divine process. You will look back one day and realize that what felt like delay was God securing you so deeply in Him that nothing could uproot you when He finally lifts you into your new season. And when that moment comes, you won't just rise, you'll be able to stay there. The hits you've endured were not random. They were targeted because of the calling on your life. You need to understand that you have been under attack not because you are weak, but because you are significant. The enemy does not waste resources on people who pose no threat to his agenda. The storms you have faced were designed to wear you down before you could step into what God has called you to do. And here's the truth. Most of those blows came not from strangers, but from people close enough to know where it would hurt the most. That's because the enemy often uses familiar voices to deliver his hardest hits, hoping that the betrayal will wound you so deeply that you'll forfeit your future. But what the enemy didn't realize is that every hit you took has been shaping you into someone he can't defeat. The heartbreaks, the false accusations, the financial struggles, the moments where you felt cornered, these have all been part of a refining process. Each hit has made you more alert to deception, more grounded in truth, and more aware of the presence of God in your battles. They were targeted attacks, but they have only produced targeted growth. You see, soldiers are not trained in comfort, they are trained under fire. God has allowed you to experience battles that felt too great for you, so that you would discover they were never too great for Him. And now, because of what you've endured, you have a sharper discernment. You recognize counterfeit opportunities faster. You are not easily swayed by flattery. You have a backbone forged in adversity, and that is something the enemy cannot break. These targeted hits were also meant to distract you, to get you so focused on your pain that you would lose sight of your purpose. But instead, they have clarified your vision. You know now what really matters. You know now who you can trust, and you know now that the only way forward is in complete dependence on God. That is why the lifting is coming, not because the attacks have stopped, but because they no longer have the power to stop you. God's lifting often comes in a way you could never predict, through doors you didn't even know existed. We often picture in our minds exactly how God will rescue us, the path He will use, the people who will help, and the timing in which it will all unfold. But the truth is, our imagination is limited by what we've already seen and experienced. God, however, is not bound by our understanding. He moves outside the predictable patterns, creating paths where none seemed possible. That is why many miss His hand at work, because they expect Him to move according to their script. But when God decides to lift you, it will be so unexpected that you will know without a doubt it was Him. Think of how the Red Sea parted for the Israelites. No one saw that as a potential escape route. The sea was an obstacle, not an option. Yet in the hands of God, what seemed like a dead end became a doorway. In your own life, there are situations right now that you see only as barriers. You've looked at them from every angle and concluded there's no way forward. But what you don't realize is that God may be preparing to turn that very obstacle into the passage that leads you into freedom. This is why you must not lean entirely on your own understanding of how deliverance will look. The help may not come from the people you were counting on. The opportunity may not come from the place you've been waiting for. In fact, the lifting may come from a direction so far outside your expectation that it will leave you speechless. God does this so that no one else can take the credit for what He has done in your life. And often, the doorway to your lifting begins with something that looks small, unimportant, or even inconvenient. A meeting you didn't plan, a conversation you almost didn't have, an opportunity you initially thought wasn't worth your time. These are the very moments God uses to set the stage for the miraculous. This is why it's so important to remain faithful where you are, even when you feel hidden or overlooked. You never know which act of obedience will lead to the opening you've been praying for. But when the lifting happens, it will make sense why the other doors closed. It will make sense why the people you thought would support you walked away. It will make sense why certain plans failed. Because the lifting that is coming is not dependent on human permission. It is orchestrated entirely by the one who sees the end from the beginning. And when He opens that unexpected door, you will step into a place you could never have entered on your own strength. The pain you've survived has shaped you for the platform you are about to stand on. It's easy to think that pain is simply an enemy to our joy, something to be avoided at all costs. But in the hands of God, pain becomes a sculptor. It chisels away the pride, the impatience and the self-reliance that could destroy us when we step into a greater place. Every wound, every loss, every season of uncertainty has been forming in you the resilience and depth you will need to sustain where God is taking you. Pain has a way of teaching you things comfort never could. In seasons of ease, you may learn to appreciate what you have, but in seasons of hardship, you learn what you're made of. You discover the strength to keep walking when there's no applause, to keep believing when the evidence seems against you, and to keep loving when your heart has been betrayed. Those who have not walked through pain often lack the depth to handle great responsibility. But you, because you have suffered, you have gained a compassion and wisdom that cannot be taught in books or classrooms. And it's not just about enduring the pain. It's about allowing the pain to refine you rather than define you. Many let their wounds turn into walls, isolating them from people and opportunities. But you have chosen to let your wounds become wells, places from which living water flows, because you've learned empathy, humility, and dependence on God in the darkest valleys. This shaping has also been a filter. It has revealed who truly belongs in your life and who doesn't. It has shown you which relationships are built on genuine loyalty and which were held together only by convenience. And though that revelation has hurt, it has also freed you to move forward without the weight of false connections. When you stand on the platform God is preparing, you will not be the same person who once cried in despair. You will be stronger, wiser, and anchored. And when others ask how you survived, you will have the authority to speak, not from theory, but from experience. You will be able to say, I have walked through the fire and I did not come out smelling like smoke. Because the pain did not break you, it built you into someone ready for the very place you once thought you'd never reach. Refuse to measure your future by your present condition. God is not finished with you yet. One of the greatest deceptions the enemy tries to plant in your mind is that what you see now is all there will ever be. When you're surrounded by problems, struggling with lack, or living in a season where nothing seems to change, it's tempting to believe that this is your permanent reality. But what you see today is not the full story. It is only a chapter, and God is still writing. If you judge your future by your current season, you will shrink your faith to fit your surroundings instead of stretching it to match His promises. Your present may be filled with limitations, but your God is not limited. Your circumstances may be temporary, but His word is eternal. Remember David? When he was hiding in caves, he was already anointed as king, yet his current reality looked nothing like his calling. If he had measured his future by those caves, he would have concluded that God's promise had failed. But the cave was not the crown. The present trial was not the final outcome, and the same is true for you. This is why you must not let your faith be determined by sight. If you only believe when you see progress, your faith is conditional. But if you can believe when there is no sign of movement, when the bank account is low, when the relationship is still broken, when the door is still shut, that is the kind of faith that moves heaven. God is not finished with you simply because life has stalled in one area. The delays, detours, and disappointments are not an end. They are a setup for the reveal of His perfect timing. And here's what's remarkable. Sometimes God allows your present to look the complete opposite of your promise, so that when the breakthrough happens, no one can explain it except to say, this was the hand of God. The very things that make no sense right now are the things that will make your testimony undeniable later. So don't shrink your dreams to fit your current circumstances. Speak life over your future, even if today feels like death. Thank God for the promise even before you see the evidence. Keep preparing as though the opportunity is on its way, because when He moves, it will happen quickly, and you will need to be ready. Your present is not your forever, It is simply the soil in which God is planting seeds for the next season of your life. Hold on to the truth that when God lifts you, He also silences every voice that tried to destroy you. There are people who have spoken against you, doubted you, and even rejoiced in your struggles. They may have labeled you as someone who wouldn't recover, someone whose best days were behind them, someone who didn't have the strength to rise again. And while those words have stung, God has been quietly preparing a response, not in arguments or debates, but in the undeniable evidence of what He's about to do in your life. When God elevates you, He doesn't just change your position, He changes the conversation around you. The same mouths that spoke your downfall will have to speak of your success. The same eyes that watched you struggle will witness you walking in blessing. And here's the beauty of it. God's vindication doesn't require you to defend yourself. He lifts you in such a way that the proof is too obvious to deny. This is why you can remain silent when people misjudge you. You can walk away from unnecessary fights. You don't have to convince them of your worth or argue about your future. You can stand still and let God be your defender, because when He moves, your results will speak louder than any insult ever could. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. He didn't argue with the king or try to prove his innocence to the officials who conspired against him. He trusted God to fight for him. And when God shut the mouths of the lions, Daniel's enemies were silenced, not because he shouted back, but because God's deliverance was too obvious to ignore. Your season of defense is over. God Himself is about to answer every false word spoken against you with undeniable blessing. And when He lifts you, He will do it so publicly, so undeniably that even those who wanted to see you fall will have to acknowledge His hand on your life. Not only will He silence the voices of your critics, He will turn the tables so that their attempts to harm you become the very stage upon which your testimony shines. The place He sets you will not just restore what was lost, it will multiply it beyond what you could have asked or imagined. One of the most beautiful truths about God's restoration is that it doesn't simply return you to the point where the damage began. He doesn't just patch up what was broken and hand it back to you in its original condition. No, when God restores, He overcompensates. He returns more than what was taken. He replaces the years that were stolen with abundance. He turns ashes into beauty, not merely replacing the fire's damage, but creating something entirely new and far more valuable. You may have lost relationships, opportunities, peace of mind, finances, or even parts of yourself in the battles you faced. But when God lifts you, those areas of loss will not remain empty. He will fill them in a way that exceeds your ability to imagine. It is in His nature to bless abundantly, to press down, shake together, and run over until you are overflowing. And this overflow will not be accidental. It will be intentional. It will be God's way of making a statement. I saw what was taken, and I have chosen to repay you in a way that will make the loss powerless to define you. Think of Job. Stripped of almost everything, afflicted in ways most of us cannot imagine. Yet when God stepped in to restore him, the blessing was double. This doubling was not only about possessions or status. It was about the declaration of God's faithfulness, the undeniable proof that no trial, no attack, and no loss can outmatch the power of divine restoration. Your story will be the same. Where there was once emptiness, there will be abundance. Where there was once humiliation, there will be honor. Where there was once mourning, there will be joy so deep it will feel like a miracle every single day. And here's the remarkable thing. When you stand in that multiplied blessing, you will look back and realize that even though you would never have chosen the pain, you cannot deny the beauty it produced. You will see that the broken road was not wasted. It was the very path God used to lead you to the place of abundance. And in that moment, gratitude will rise, not just for the blessing, but for the process that brought you there. So do not be afraid of the magnitude of what's coming. Some people grow nervous when they sense change approaching because they've been so used to surviving that the thought of thriving feels unfamiliar. But this is what you were made for. You were never meant to live at the level of your wounds. You were meant to live at the level of His promises. And when He multiplies your restoration, you will finally step into the fullness of that promise. Now hear me, this lifting is not just about you. Yes, God will bless you, but He will also use your life as a testimony to others who are still in the middle of their storm. You will become living proof that the God who lifts is still in the business of turning pain into power. People will see what He has done for you and begin to believe that He can do it for them. Your victory will become someone else's hope. And so, as we close, I want you to hold this truth tightly. Every tear you've cried, every battle you've fought, every night you've spent wondering if you'd make it, it has all been leading to this moment. Life may have hit you from every side, but the hand of God is about to lift you higher than you've ever been. Not just to restore what was lost, but to multiply it until your life overflows with evidence of His faithfulness. When that moment comes, you won't have to force the doors open, beg for opportunities, or convince anyone of your worth. The same God who kept you through the hits will place you where no one can remove you. And when He does, you will know it was Him, not luck, not coincidence, not human favor, but the unshakable, unstoppable hand of Almighty God. So stand firm. Keep your eyes lifted. The storm will not last forever. The lifting is coming, and when it does, the world will see the power of a God who raises His children from the ashes and sets them in places they never dreamed they could stand. Your story is not over. It is only about to begin.